Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring Skool.
Okay.
And, it's this educational platform that's been making a lot of noise lately with kind of a different approach. It's like this blend of social media and online learning, and they've even got these community forums.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. It seems really interesting to me. I mean, one of the things that really caught my eye was this whole idea of making learning FUN, like you earn points and level up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Just like your favorite video game, but for like actual knowledge.
Right.
So, I don't know, is this just kind of a flashy gimmick to get people's attention, or is there something more profound happening here, maybe like actually changing the way we learn?
Yeah. I mean, that's the big question, isn't it?
Right.
It's definitely more than just a gimmick, though.
Oh, okay.
What I think is so fascinating about Skool is that they're really trying to create like a whole new ecosystem for learning built on three main pillars: courses, community, and gamification. And they all kind of work together, to shape the learning experience in a way that's very different from what we're used to.
Okay. Yeah. Let's break those down a little bit.
Okay.
So courses, that's pretty standard, right? For any online learning platform. Like that's what they do. So what makes Skool's courses stand out?
Yeah, you're right. Most platforms do have courses.
Yeah.
But what Skool's doing is they're trying to strip away all the clutter, all the unnecessary stuff, like complexity. They have a really clean, simple interface.
Uh-huh.
You know how some platforms, you go on there and it just feels like a maze of menus and options. And it's like, where do I even start?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Skool just gets straight to the point.
Okay.
And I think that benefits both learners and the people creating the courses.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Learners can easily navigate the content, whether it's videos or, downloadable resources or interactive exercises, whatever it is. And for creators, it's super flexible. They can upload content in pretty much any format.
Yeah.
Videos, PDFs, audio files, whatever works best for their teaching style.
Wow.
They even have built-in progress tracking.
Ah.
So you can see how far you've come, which really helps.
Yeah, for sure. So it's like a streamlined, minimalist learning experience. I dig that. But what about this community pillar? I'm really intrigued by how they're integrating that into the whole learning process. Like that's not something you see on every platform.
You're right. It's not.
Yeah.
And this is where I think Skool really shines.
Okay.
They haven't just tacked on a forum as an afterthought or something.
Right.
Each course has its own dedicated community forum. And it's built right into the platform, tightly integrated. So it's there,
Yeah.
Think of it as a support system for every subject you're learning.
Oh.
It's a space for learners to connect with each other, ask questions, get insights,
Yeah.
even collaborate on projects.
Wow, that's cool. So you can actually work with other people.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really cool is that it's not just about getting help from the instructor, whoever created the course.
Yeah.
They really encourage peer-to-peer learning, which is so valuable. Everyone contributes their own knowledge and perspectives.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So it's almost like turning the traditional classroom model on its head, right?
Oh, yeah.
Instead of one expert lecturing to a passive audience, you've got this dynamic exchange of ideas and experiences.
Exactly. And that dynamic exchange, that's where the real magic happens. It taps into what's called collective intelligence.
Collective intelligence.
Yeah, imagine you're stuck on a problem in a course. In a traditional setting, you might struggle alone.
Yeah.
Right? Or wait for the instructor to respond. Who knows when that'll be?
Right.
But in a Skool community, you could just post your question and get input from, potentially hundreds of other learners.
Wow.
And these learners come from all sorts of different backgrounds.
Yeah.
They have a variety of experiences. So you're not just getting one answer. You're getting a whole spectrum of perspectives and potential solutions.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like crowdsourcing your learning.
Exactly.
But in a much more focused and supportive environment.
Exactly.
I can see how that could be really valuable.
Yeah.
But let's not forget about, the fun factor here.
Oh, right.
You mentioned gamification as a core pillar.
Uh-huh.
And I have to admit, the idea of earning points and leveling up while I'm learning is pretty appealing.
Yeah.
So tell me more about how that works in Skool. Does it actually make a difference, or is it just kind of a superficial layer?
It's definitely more than just a shiny surface.
Okay.
They've really incorporated gamification in a way that enhances learning.
Yeah.
It's not just about getting badges for the sake of it.
Right.
It's about tapping into that psychology of motivation and engagement, which is really powerful. So for example, They use points and leaderboards to introduce like a healthy dose of competition.
Okay.
This can push you to go further,
Yeah.
really master the material.
Right.
And then, there are milestone rewards, like maybe unlocking special content or even access to like exclusive community features
Ooh.
when you reach certain goals.
So it's like those progress bars and achievements you see in video games.
Exactly.
But instead of like conquering a virtual world, you're conquering, knowledge and skills.
Precisely. And it works. There's tons of research out there that shows that like gamification can boost motivation. It increases engagement.
Yeah.
And even helps with like remembering what you've learned.
Yeah.
Knowledge retention.
Really?
Yeah. It taps into our natural desire for like achieving things and, being recognized.
Right.
And they've done it so well. It's woven right into the learning,
Yeah.
It feels very organic.
This is all starting to paint a really, really compelling picture of school.
Yeah.
But I guess my question now is, who is this actually designed for?
Right.
Is it for everyone?
Yeah. Good question.
Or is it like, is there a certain type of learner or, creator who would benefit the most from this approach?
I think Skool really has something to offer. A pretty wide range of people on both sides, really.
Okay.
For people creating content, it's almost like a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
You can host your courses there, build a community around it,
Yeah.
monetize your expertise,
Oh, okay.
all in one place.
Yeah.
And because Skool handles like all the technical stuff, all the back end, creators can focus on what they're good at, creating the content and connecting with their audience.
So creators they're loving it.
Yeah.
But I'm putting on my learner hat now.
Okay.
What's in it for someone like me? Someone who's just, eager to learn new things and expand my knowledge.
Yeah.
How does Skool actually benefit the learner?
Well, imagine this. You want to learn about, let's say, digital marketing.
Okay.
Instead of trying to piece together information from like random YouTube videos or blog posts,
Yeah.
you could enroll in a Skool course taught by someone who's a recognized expert.
Right.
You get structured lessons, curated resources, and access to this whole community of like-minded learners, all in one platform.
That does sound pretty convenient, but I have to ask, does it actually deliver? Like, are there real world examples of people using Skool to actually, achieve their goals?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're seeing it being used effectively in all sorts of different areas.
Okay.
You've got professionals, they're upskilling in things like coding and design. You've got individuals pursuing passion projects like photography, writing.
Wow.
Even entrepreneurs building like thriving communities around their brands.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, the applications are really diverse.
Do you have any specific stories, that illustrate how Skool is making a real difference in people's lives?
Sure. There's a story of an entrepreneur. She used Skool to learn digital marketing.
Oh.
And she actually scaled her business to 6 figures within a year.
Wow.
She credits the combination of expert instruction, peer support from the community, and, the gamified elements for helping her stay motivated and achieve her goals.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then there's this fitness coach. He built a massive online community on Skool, providing workout routines, nutrition advice, and personalized support to thousands of members. It's pretty amazing what people are doing with it.
Those are some impressive results. It really sounds like Skool's empowering people, to actually make progress.
Yeah.
But let's be realistic. I mean, the online learning market is incredibly crowded. You've got Teachable, Kajabi, Thinkific. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
So how does Skool differentiate itself from, these really established players? What makes it unique?
That's a great question. And you're right, there's a lot of competition.
Yeah.
While some of those other platforms offer similar features, Skool stands out in a few key ways.
Okay.
First, they're really committed to integrating community. Like really integrating it. It's not just an add-on. It's woven into the very core of the platform.
Got it.
Their gamification is also much more sophisticated than what you typically find.
Okay.
They've really thought it through,
Yeah.
about how to use those mechanics to actually enhance learning.
Yeah.
And then Skool manages to offer all of this while still remaining, user-friendly and affordable.
So it's not just about checking all the boxes. It's about creating like a really immersive and engaging learning experience.
Yeah.
At a price point that's accessible to, a lot of people.
Exactly. And that's what makes Skool so exciting.
Yeah.
It's not just another platform. They're pushing boundaries. They're challenging the traditional models of education.
It certainly seems like they are. But,
Yeah.
No platform is perfect, right?
Right.
Every innovation comes with its own set of challenges. What are some of the hurdles that Skool might face, as it continues to grow and evolve?
Like any platform, especially in a competitive market like this, they've definitely got their work cut out for them.
Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges, I think, will be maintaining quality control as they scale.
Right.
As more and more people join the platform, more creators, more learners,
Yeah.
it gets harder to make sure that all the content is, meeting a certain standard.
Right.
They're going to have to invest in good moderation systems,
Yeah.
and find ways to empower the community to kind of self-regulate a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Another challenge is going to be accessibility,
Yeah.
making sure it's accessible to a global audience. Things like multilingual support,
Right.
offline access, for those who might not have consistent internet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then, of course, they're going to have to stay on top of the technology, keep innovating,
Right.
adapting to the changing needs of both learners and creators. It's a tall order.
Yeah. Those are all really valid points. But even with those challenges, it seems like Skool's really tapping into some major trends, that are shaping the future of education.
Yeah, I think so.
Things like personalized learning, collaborative environments, and, the embrace of lifelong learning. It's exciting to see how they'll evolve and adapt.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to get your expert take on this. Do you think Skool really represents the future of learning? Or is it just, kind of a fleeting trend that'll fade away?
It's such a fascinating question. And to be honest, it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, I bet.
What's clear, though, is that Skool's pushing boundaries.
Mm.
It's challenging those traditional models of education.
Yeah.
Whether or not it becomes like the dominant model,
Right.
it's definitely pointing towards a future where learning is more, personalized,
Yeah.
engaging,
Right.
and driven by community.
I think you've really hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
It's less about predicting, what the future holds with absolute certainty.
Right.
It's more about recognizing the shifts that are happening,
Yeah.
like right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And Skool's a prime example of that. It shows how technology can be used, to create a learning experience that's more dynamic and engaging.
Yeah, absolutely. And it raises so many questions about how we learn and teach in this digital age.
Yeah, for sure.
Clear that Skool's not just a passive platform.
Yeah.
They're really pushing things forward.
Exactly. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I'm curious, do you think Skool truly represents the future of learning? Or is it just a fleeting trend?
It's such an interesting question.
Yeah.
It's tough to say for sure. What's clear is that they're shaking things up,
Yeah.
challenging the old ways of doing things.
Right.
Whether or not it becomes the model, it's definitely pointing to a future where learning is much more personalized
Yeah.
and engaging,
Yeah.
community-driven.
Yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's not so much about predicting the future. It's about recognizing those shifts that are already happening.
Right.
And Skool it's such a great example of how technology can be used to create, a more dynamic and engaging learning experience.
And that's what's so exciting. We're seeing the lines blur between traditional education and online platforms.
Yeah.
And Skool's right there at the forefront.
Yeah, it's definitely food for thought.
Yeah.
If traditional education models are evolving, how might platforms like Skool shape the way we, learn and teach in the years to come? That's something for everyone listening to think about.
It is. It's a question worth exploring. The potential is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really eager to see how Skool and platforms like it continue to innovate and redefine the educational landscape.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've been exploring Skool's really unique approach to online learning, from its core structure and emphasis on community and gamification to, its real world applications and potential challenges. Skool it's clearly a platform worth watching.
For sure. It brings up so many important questions.
Yeah.
About how we learn and teach in the digital age.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that Skool's not just sitting back passively. They're actively pushing the boundaries of what online learning can be.
Exactly. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, do you think Skool truly represents the future of learning? Or is it just a fleeting trend?
Oh, that's a tough one to answer definitively. It's really fascinating, though. What's clear is that they're shaking things up. They're challenging the old ways of doing things. Whether or not it becomes the model, it's definitely pointing to a future where learning is much more personalized and engaging and community driven.
You know, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's not so much about predicting the future. It's about recognizing those shifts that are already happening.
Right.
And school is a perfect example of that. You know, it's how technology can be used to create this dynamic, more engaging learning experience.
And that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah.
You know, we're seeing those lines blur between traditional education and these online platforms.
Yeah.
And school is leading the way.
It really is food for thought, you know? If these old education models are changing, how might platforms like Skool shape the way we learn and teach in the future? It's a big question for everybody listening to consider.
Yeah, it's a question worth thinking about. The potential is really huge. And I'm really interested to see how Skool and other platforms like it continue to innovate.
Yeah.
And, you know, change how we think about education.
Well, we've covered a lot today, exploring Skool's unique approach to online learning.
Yeah.
You know, from its basic structure and how it emphasizes community and gamification to the real world impact it's having and the potential challenges, you know, down the road. Skool is definitely a platform worth paying attention to.
Absolutely. And it raises these big questions, you know, about learning and teaching in the digital age.
Yeah.
It's obvious that school's not just sitting back.
Yeah.
They're really pushing the limits of what online learning can be.
Exactly. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, you know, do you think Skool really represents the future of learning? Or is it just like a temporary trend?
Oh, that's a tough one to answer definitively. It is really fascinating, though. What's clear is that they're shaking things up.
Yeah.
Challenging the old ways of doing things, whether it becomes the model or not. You know?
Yeah.
It's definitely pointing to a future where learning is much more personalized and engaging
Yeah.
and community driven.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's not about, you know, predicting the future perfectly. It's about recognizing those changes that are already happening.
Right.
And Skool's a great example of that, of how technology can be used to create that dynamic, more engaging learning experience.
Absolutely. And what's so exciting is, you know, we're seeing those lines blur between traditional education and these new online platforms.
Yeah.
And Skool is at the forefront of that.
It really is food for thought. If these old education models are evolving, you know, how might platforms like Skool change how we learn and teach in the future? It's a big question for everyone listening to think about.
It is, and it's one worth exploring. The potential is massive, and I'm excited to see how Skool and other platforms like it keep innovating.
Yeah.
And, you know, changing how we think about education.
Well, we've covered a lot today, exploring Skool's unique approach to online learning. From its core structure and its focus on community and gamification to, you know, its real-world impact and the potential challenges ahead, Skool's a platform worth watching.
It really is. It raises a lot of big questions about how we learn and teach in this digital age.
Mm-hmm.
And it's clear that they're not just sitting back, they're actively pushing the limits of what online learning can be.
Exactly. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, do you think Skool truly represents the future of learning? Or is it just like a passing trend?
That's a really tough one to answer for sure. What's clear is that they are really shaking things up, challenging those old ways of doing things. Whether or not it becomes the model, who knows?
Right.
But it's pointing towards a future where learning is a lot more personalized, engaging, and community driven.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's not really about predicting the future with certainty. It's more about recognizing the shifts that are happening right now.
Right, exactly.
And Skool is a prime example of that. You know, it's how technology can be used to create a more dynamic and engaging learning experience.
And that's what makes it so exciting. We're seeing these lines blur between, you know, traditional education and these online platforms. Skool's right at the front of that.
It's food for thought for sure. If those old education models are evolving, how might platforms like Skool shape the way we learn and teach in the future? It's something for everyone listening to consider.
It really is a question worth exploring. The potential is vast. And I'm excited to see how Skool and other platforms like it, you know, continue to innovate and change the way we think about education.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, exploring Skool's, you know, unique approach to online learning. From its core structure and its emphasis on community and gamification to its real-world impact and the challenges it might face down the road, Skool's a platform that's definitely worth keeping an eye on.
Absolutely. It raises important questions about how we learn and teach in this digital age. It's clear that they're not just sitting back. They're actively pushing the boundaries of what online learning can be.
Exactly. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, do you think Skool truly represents the future of learning? Or is it, you know, just a fleeting trend?
It's a fascinating question and one that's, you know, hard to answer definitively. What is clear is that school is pushing the boundaries, challenging those old models of education. Whether it becomes the dominant model or not, it's definitely pointing towards a future where learning is more personalized, engaging, and community-driven.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's not so much about, predicting the future with absolute certainty. It's more about recognizing the shifts that are already happening.
Yeah.
And school is a prime example of that. It's how technology can be used to create a more, dynamic and engaging learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's so exciting is that, we're seeing the lines blur between traditional education and online platforms.
Yeah.
School's at the forefront of that.
It's definitely food for thought. If traditional education models are evolving, how might platforms like Skool shape the way we learn and teach in the years to come? That's something I think everyone listening should really consider.
It is. It's a question worth exploring. The potential is huge. And I'm eager to see how Skool and platforms like it continue to innovate and redefine the educational landscape.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today exploring Skool's unique approach to online learning, from its core structure and its emphasis on community and gamification to its real-world applications and the potential challenges, down the road. Skool is a platform that's definitely worth watching.
It is. It really raises important questions about, how we learn and teach in this digital world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obvious that Skool is not just a passive platform. They're really pushing the boundaries of what online learning can be.
Exactly. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, do you think Skool truly represents the future of learning? Or is it just a passing trend?
It's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to answer, with any certainty. What's clear, though, is that Skool is pushing boundaries. They're challenging those old models of education. Whether or not it becomes like the model,
right,
it's definitely pointing to a future where learning is more, personalized, engaging, and driven by community.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's not so much about predicting the future as it is recognizing those shifts that are happening right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And Skool is a prime example of that. It's how technology can be used to create a more dynamic, a more engaging learning experience.
And that's what makes it so exciting. We're seeing the lines blur between traditional education and those online platforms.
Yeah.
And Skool is right at the front of that.
Yeah, it's food for thought for sure. If these, old education models are changing, how might platforms like Skool shape the way we learn and teach in the years to come? It's a question for everyone listening to consider.
Yeah, it really is. It's a question worth exploring.
Yeah.
I mean, the potential is huge, and I'm, eager to see how Skool and other platforms like it continue to innovate and, and redefine the educational landscape.
Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, exploring Skool's, unique approach to online learning. From its core structure, how it emphasizes community and gamification, to its real-world impact and the challenges it might face down the road. Skool's definitely a platform worth watching.
It really is. And it raises these big questions about how we learn and teach in this digital age. And it's clear that Skool's not just sitting back passively. They're really trying to push the boundaries of what online learning can be.
Exactly. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, do you think Skool truly represents the future of learning? Or is it just a fleeting trend?
That's a really tough one to answer for sure. What's clear is that they're really shaking things up. They're challenging those old ways of doing things. Whether or not it becomes the model, who knows?
Right.
But it's definitely pointing towards a future where learning is a lot more personalized, a lot more engaging, and a lot more driven by community.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's not so much about predicting the future with, absolute certainty. It's more about recognizing the shifts that are happening right now.
Right, exactly.
And Skool is a perfect example of that. It's how technology can be used to create, a more dynamic and engaging learning experience.
And that's what makes it so exciting. We're seeing the lines blur between traditional education and these new platforms.
Yeah.
And Skool is at the forefront of all of that.
It's food for thought, for sure. If these old education models are evolving, how might platforms like Skool shape the way we learn and teach, in the years to come? It's a question for everyone listening to consider.
Yeah. It's a question that's worth exploring. I mean, the potential is huge, and I'm, eager to see how Skool and other platforms like it continue to innovate and redefine the education landscape.
Well, we've covered a lot today exploring Skool's, unique approach to online learning. from its core structure and its emphasis on community and gamification to, the real world impact it's having and the potential challenges it might face down the road. School's definitely a platform worth paying attention to.
For sure. It raises a lot of really important questions about, how we learn and teach in this digital age. And it's clear that they're not just sitting back. They're actively pushing the boundaries of what online learning can be.
Exactly. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, do you think Skool truly represents the future of learning? Or is it just a fleeting trend?
That's a really tough one to answer, for sure. I mean, what is clear is that they are really shaking things up, challenging the old ways of doing things. Whether or not it becomes the model, who knows?
Right.
But it's definitely pointing towards a future where learning is, a lot more personalized, a lot more engaging, and a lot more driven by community.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's not so much about, predicting the future with absolute certainty. It's really fascinating to think about how, these platforms are changing the game. It's not just the technology itself, it's how it's shifting our mindsets, about what learning can even be.
That's a great point. We're so used to thinking of learning as this formal structured process.
Right.
That happens in a classroom, right, with a teacher.
Yeah.
But platforms like Skool, they're blurring those lines.
Yeah.
Learning is becoming more accessible, more personalized. And dare I say it, enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's like they're tapping into our natural curiosity.
Yeah.
That desire to learn and turning it into the driving force for growth.
Absolutely. And that shift in mindset, that's key. Because in today's world, things change so fast.
The ability to, adapt and learn new things constantly, that's more important than ever. The old model where you get a degree and you're done just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
We need platforms that make us lifelong learners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Help us constantly upgrade our skills and knowledge to keep up with the world.
Yeah. It's like that saying, the only constant is change.
Exactly.
And if we want to thrive in that environment, we have to embrace learning as this ongoing thing, not just a one-time event.
I agree.
But speaking of change, I'm curious about how Skool is approaching this challenge of quality control.
Right.
As they grow. You mentioned earlier that could be a hurdle. How can they ensure that all the content on their platform is good, especially as more and more creators come on board?
It's a big question.
Yeah.
And it's something that all platforms struggle with, as they get bigger. Skool's definitely aware of it, and they have a few strategies in place.
Okay.
First, they vet the creators.
Oh.
So before someone can host a course, they have to go through a process.
Mm-hmm. So it's not just like an open door policy.
No, definitely not. They look at the creator's experience.
Yeah.
Their expertise. The quality of the content they're proposing.
So it's kind of like a quality control check.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning?
Exactly. They want to curate the platform, at least to some extent.
Yeah.
Make sure the creators are legit, the courses are well structured, that kind of thing.
Makes sense.
But that's just the first step, of course. Once the course is up and running,
yeah,
they really rely on feedback from the community.
Okay. Learners
can rate the courses, leave reviews, and even flag any content that's inaccurate or inappropriate.
So it's kind of like that wisdom of the crowds thing.
Yes, exactly.
Using, the collective intelligence of the community to filter out the bad stuff and highlight the good stuff.
Exactly.
But what happens when there are, disagreements, conflicting perspectives? How does Skool handle that within the community?
That's a great question. Yeah. And it comes up all the time with any online community, really.
Yeah.
Skool encourages respectful dialogue, debate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they also have really clear guidelines against harassment, bullying, spreading misinformation. They have moderators.
Yeah.
People who keep an eye on things,
Okay.
and step in if things get out of hand.
So there's someone watching.
Yeah. Learners can also report behavior if it violates those guidelines.
So it's like a combination of proactive and reactive measures.
Yeah. And they also put a lot of emphasis on personal responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
They encourage learners to think critically about the information they see online.
Right.
To consider different perspectives, even when they disagree with someone. To engage in constructive dialogue.
That's so important, especially these days. We're bombarded with so much information all the time.
Yeah.
It's really crucial to think critically and not just accept everything we see online.
For sure.
Especially when it comes to something as important as learning. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about accessibility. You mentioned earlier that, Skool needs to ensure its platform is accessible to everyone, right?
Globally. So what are they doing to address things like language barriers,
Yeah.
and the digital divide.
This is something they're definitely working on, actively trying to improve. They're developing multilingual support for the platform,
Oh, wow.
starting with the most common languages, of course.
Okay.
They're translating the interface, the courses themselves, and all the community features so more people can access it.
That's a huge undertaking,
Yeah,
but it's so important.
it is.
It's a good reminder that, even though the internet seems global, there are still barriers.
Yeah,
Language barriers, cultural barriers.
for sure.
What about learners who might not have reliable internet?
That's another thing they're looking into. They're exploring offline access.
Oh, wow.
So you can download the course material, access it even when you're not online, which is really important for, people in developing countries
Yeah.
or rural areas where internet might be limited.
That's amazing. It's really inspiring to see that, they're taking these steps to make learning more inclusive, more accessible, no matter your language, location, even socioeconomic background.
Exactly.
It really aligns with that mission of, democratizing education, making it available to everyone.
That's what they're all about. And that commitment to accessibility, that's what sets them apart.
Yeah.
There are other platforms out there
Right.
that are focused on, making as much money as possible.
Right.
Skool seems genuinely invested in having a positive impact, and I think their approach to the platform shows that.
It's a good thing to see.
Yeah,
But let's not forget that Skool is a business.
right. Of course.
They need to make money to keep going.
Yeah.
So how does their business model work? Do they take a cut of, the money creators make from their courses?
They do, but it's very creator friendly.
Yeah.
They charge a monthly fee
Uh-huh.
to host the courses and the communities,
Okay.
but they don't take a percentage of the sales.
Oh, wow.
So creators keep all the money they make from their courses, which is a big deal for a lot of people. Yeah, that's a really different approach. I mean, a lot of other platforms, they take a big chunk.
They do?
It sounds like Skool is more about, supporting the creators, partnering with them, really.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It's not just about seeing them as a source of revenue.
So it's a win-win situation.
It seems to be.
Creators get this powerful platform, keep all their earnings,
Right.
and Skool makes money through the subscriptions.
Exactly. And that model seems to be working. It's part of the reason they've been able to grow so quickly.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to see how they've, shaken things up in online learning by focusing on community, accessibility, empowering creators. But I'm wondering, with all this talk about their, innovative approach, are there any potential downsides or criticisms, things we should be aware of?
Well, there are always potential downsides to anything new.
Right.
One concern I've heard is the possibility of echo chambers.
Echo chambers, what do you mean by that?
So an echo chamber is where people only interact with others who agree with them.
Oh, okay.
And it reinforces those beliefs,
Yeah.
even if they're not, accurate.
Right.
Because schools' communities are organized around specific interests.
Yeah.
There's a chance that people might only engage with, like-minded folks,
Okay.
which limits their exposure to different viewpoints.
That's a valid concern. It's something to be mindful of with any online community, really.
It is.
But how can we, as learners and participants, how can we mitigate that risk?
I think you have to be intentional
Yeah.
about seeking out diverse perspectives. Don't just talk to people who agree with you.
Right.
Actively look for conversations with people who see things differently. Challenge your own assumptions.
Yeah.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
And be open to learning from others.
That's great advice. It's a good reminder that real learning happens when you step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Engage with ideas that challenge you. Another potential downside I've heard is, this over-reliance on gamification. Some people say that all the focus on points and badges and leaderboards, it can actually distract from the learning itself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point. And it's true. I mean, gamification done badly
Right.
can feel really superficial,
Right.
gimmicky.
Yeah.
The focus should always be on the learning,
Yeah.
not just getting points or, climbing some leaderboard.
Right.
But when it's done well, gamification can be really powerful, for motivation and engagement. It's about finding the right balance.
Yeah. So it's all about using technology in a way that actually helps the learner.
Exactly.
Not letting the technology, take over the learning process.
Should be a tool, not a crutch.
Yeah.
And it's up to all of us, educators, learners, the people who design these platforms,
Right.
to use it responsibly and effectively.
To create really transformative learning experiences.
That's the goal.
Well said. Speaking of transformative learning experiences, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've looked at schools' features, the community-driven approach, their commitment to making it accessible. We've even touched on some of the potential downsides.
Right.
But now I want to zoom out a little, look at the bigger picture. What does Skool's emergence, what does it tell us about the future of learning? What are the big trends we're seeing? And how might those trends shape the way we learn and teach in the years to come?
I think Skool is a really good example of this trend towards personalized learning. The old models, they were all about one size fits all. But now we're realizing that learners are different. They have different needs, different learning styles, different paces.
Yeah.
Platforms like Skool give learners control over their own journey.
Okay.
They can choose the content, the pace, connect with others who share their interests.
So it's about moving away from that standardized factory model approach and embracing the fact that, every learner is an individual.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that there is no one right way to learn.
Right.
Another trend that Skool shows us is, the importance of community in learning.
Yeah.
We're moving away from that idea of learning in isolation and recognizing the power of collaboration, peer support.
Right.
Sharing knowledge.
It's like we're rediscovering that old tradition of learning in community, but now we have technology that can, amplify it, connect people globally.
That's a great way to put it.
And I guess Skool's success also shows this growing demand for lifelong learning.
Right.
The old model where you get your degree and you're done, it just doesn't cut it anymore.
It doesn't.
In today's world, we have to keep learning, upgrading our skills, to stay relevant, to be adaptable. And platforms like Skool, they make it so much easier to do that.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about formal education anymore.
Uh-huh.
It's about continually learning, growing throughout our lives.
Right.
It's about, embracing your curiosity, chasing your passions, never stop learning.
That's the spirit.
And platforms like Skool are a big part of making that happen. They give you the tools. To connect with others.
Right.
And to evolve and grow throughout your life.
It's a really exciting time, especially if you're passionate about learning.
Yeah.
With platforms like Skool coming up, I think we're starting to see what the future could look like.
Yeah. But before we wrap this up, I want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
If those old education models are changing, how might platforms like Skool change the way we learn and teach, down the road?
Yeah.
What role will technology play?
Right.
And how do we make sure that technology benefits everyone, all learners?
Those are great questions to think about. And I think the answers depend on us,
Yeah.
as a society.
Right.
How we choose to embrace these new technologies.
Yeah.
How we integrate them. It's a conversation we need to have. And I'm really glad to be part of it.
I think you've given our listeners a lot to think about. And I hope this deep dive into Skool, I hope it sparks some curiosity.
Yeah.
Maybe inspired some new ideas about the future of learning.
Me too. It's been great exploring this with you, sharing these insights.
The pleasure's all mine. To everyone listening, if you're curious about Skool, check out their website, explore the platform, see what it's all about.
And if you're already using Skool, let us know.
Yeah.
Share your experiences. Let's keep this conversation going about the future of learning.
And who knows, maybe we'll see you inside a Skool community someday. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep diving deeper.
One thing that's really struck me throughout this conversation is that people don't have to wait for the whole education system to change to actually benefit from these innovations.
That's so true.
Like Skool. It exists. It's out there.
It's available now.
You can dive in today.
Yeah, that's such a good point. We often get caught up in, waiting for these big systemic changes, but sometimes the most powerful changes start with individuals. So, if you're feeling stuck, if you want something more engaging than the traditional learning route, why not try a platform like Skool? See where it takes you.
I think it's a great idea. You might discover a passion you didn't even know you had, or connect with people who get you, who are interested in the same things.
Yeah.
You might even learn the skills you need to, finally start that dream project you've been thinking about.
Right. The possibilities are really endless. The only limit is your own curiosity.
And your willingness to, step outside your comfort zone and explore.
And that's what I love about this whole discussion. It's about empowering you, the listener, to take charge of your own learning journey. We've talked about the features, the benefits, the challenges, but the biggest takeaway is this. You have the power to learn and grow. It's in your hands.
Well said. And platforms like Skool, they're tools. They can help you unlock that potential. They provide the structure, the community, the resources, but you have to bring your own curiosity, your passion, your dedication.
Yeah, that's where the real magic
It
happens.
is.
And who knows, maybe by, trying out these new ways of learning, you won't just transform your own life. Maybe you'll help shape the future of education for others.
That would be amazing.
It's pretty exciting to think about.
It is. And honestly, I think we're just scratching the surface when it comes to innovation and learning.
Yeah,
The next few years are going to be incredible. I can't wait to see what new things we come up with.
me neither. Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Skool. I hope this has been, insightful and inspiring and maybe even a little bit challenging.
I hope so.
It's been a pleasure, having you here.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to everyone listening, never stop learning, never stop exploring, and never underestimate the power of your own curiosity.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, we'll say goodbye. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep diving deeper.